too. Do you think Justin and Chris will be able to practice today, this week?
Justin Jones should practice this week. At some point, he's feeling good. He ran well on the off day and was out there in the walkthrough. I don't know if it's going to be today, but we anticipate him practicing this week. Chris Harris, not as sure right now. We're still unpacking it. It's kind of a day-to-day thing with him. He has better strength and range of motion. But like I said last week, we're going to make sure that he's safe before he goes back out there.
Hey, Coach, is preparing for Patrick Mahomes similar to preparing for Dak Prescott in the sense you want to keep them in the pocket to kind of limit their moving outside the pocket and making plays?
There's a lot of different types of mobility with quarterbacks in the NFL. I think most of the special guys now in the modern NFL have it. I think how it expresses itself, like what type of mobility it is, and how each guy plays the game is different. I think Dak and Patrick are very different players, although that is a strength of their game. The way Patrick plays, just his play style, their offensive scheme, they're very different than Dallas's. But it is an important point that you bring up because a lot of their offense can be created outside the timing and rhythm of the initial setup. And I think that any time you have that offensively, it's an advantage for you when your quarterback can create when maybe that first play isn't there, or if that look is crowded within the pocket. And certainly Patrick is as good as it gets when that component happens within the play. So it's going to be a big part of the game this week with him because he's so dangerous in that part of his game.
In your NFL experience, have you anything you can pinpoint when you faced a team that's coming off a loss like the Chiefs are?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to treat each game like it has a life of its own. I think that you look at the game that they just played and assess what happened, just like we did. And whether you win or you lose, there's a lot to unpack in every game. And they played a really good team on the road, and things like that happen in the NFL. They've had an outstanding record, really regardless of what year it's been, but particularly at the beginning of the season. And they were playing a team that is really good. Baltimore has won a lot of football games over the last, since John Harbaugh has been that coach. They played a really good team on the road, and they were right there at the end. So I think they're still trying to find their way, just like every other NFL team is right now. I don't think any team that's playing in the NFL is where they're going to be in January. So I think every team's kind of finding itself, but Kansas City is as good as it gets. Their record speaks for itself the last 3 years.
Brandon, just with Storm at right tackle, I know you guys helped him a decent amount of games in terms of protection, keeping tight ends and shipping, that sort of thing. Do you have to do more of that moving forward? Can you make game plan changes to sort of help alleviate some of the issues that Storm had at right tackle?
Yeah, you're always planning for your people, and you're always trying to have a lot of diversity within your protection plan. And I think that there were some things last week relative to where Dallas was from a depth standpoint and actually who was going to be playing for them that we had to kind of assess as the game began, like where are these people going to be and how are they going to deploy them because they're still brand new. So I think once we found out, okay, this is their plan of attack, then we were able to kind of flip the chapters within our plan for him. But you're trying to do that in every game plan. And, Kansas City's got a lot of quality rushers, as you know. And I think that, the biggest part of the passing game is pass protection. The types of passes that you have, the types of protections that you have. And we spent a lot of time on it. And I think that last game, there was a little bit more pressure. But, I mean, when you're playing in the NFL, there's always going to be some tight pockets, and I feel like Justin manages it really well. And I think with Storm, his issues are more fundamental from that game. They were fundamental issues, and if he can improve fundamentally, I know that we can help him with scheme. But I think if he can really attack his fundamentals this week, he'll play a much better game.
Ryan, any notable players set to miss practice today?
I don't think so. Nothing new from the game. We've got some guys that are sore, and we may hold some guys out as more cautionary for today. I like to give guys one extra day. Especially the guys have played a lot of ball in the league. So a lot of times if we do that, it's just more, precautionary, knowing that tomorrow is the big work day. So if you see that, then that's probably the reason.
Brandon, on Monday you were saying that for the offense, it's pretty early in the process, with Lombardi too many pieces. But on defense for yourself, how do you feel that process of developing is going for you guys?
Yeah, we're at the beginning. I think the difference is on offense, we've got more established players. We have more guys that have played a lot of football in the NFL. So it's really more them gelling together, where on defense we have a lot of guys that haven't played in the NFL. And we're new. So we're still, working through that like everybody else is. And that's no excuse for how we played on Sunday, not at all. But just the facts are, we got to keep coaching better, keep defining things better for our guys. Because as I mentioned, our guys are awesome. They're completely invested. And really it's just, they're little things. They're not these huge hot button items where you're saying, man, like we're in trouble. I certainly don't feel that way. So it's just a lot of little things within how we deploy our personnel, how we play our techniques, how we deploy the schemes, and we're going to keep getting better as we go, for sure.
Right, how much, like on the run defense, is it kind of just sort of a growing pains thing where guys are learning the scheme, learning the communication and all? Is that part of it?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. I think if you take a look at what happened in that ball game, like I said, we were in a lot of good run structures. We felt like that was going to be a part of their plan. They have two really good running backs, and they have a really good offensive line. So we knew that was going to be a part of it. And I think the runs that split us, we were in good run defenses that weren't executed well. And a big part of execution is knowing what to do and how to do it. And like I said, that's me as a coach defining it better for our players, because I know they'll do it. And so I need to do that better for our guys, and then our run defense will improve.
Brandon, sorry to go back to the last game, but the end of half play where CeeDee Lamb got free and Zeke almost scored. Mm-hmm. You said after the game that was just whatever, but what happened there? Were you okay with how that sort of?
No, I definitely was not happened. My saying whatever was my disappointment and frustration with the play. We were in a end of half type defense, and we had one player come off his man, which was CeeDee Lamb, which allowed him to catch the ball. And then after he caught the ball, we had three guys miss easy tackles. I would say they were not difficult tackles to make because we had poor tracking of the football. And then, thankfully Derwin, kind of bailed us out. But that just, that was 48 yards that could have been completely avoided. And what I was most disappointed was we lost momentum. We just missed a kick. And then now you get flagged for an for a penalty, then they go 48 yards and almost score. And even though we had the ball back to begin the half, it didn't feel as good it wouldn't have felt the same had we maybe made a kick, stopped them, got the ball back. Now you have the crowd into it. And now, I didn't like the way that we unpacked the end of that half. And defensively, we could have avoided that, because if we just tackle them there, now we're feeling good about things. And like I said, they didn't have very many passing yards, and 48 were on that play. So you unpack that 48, and you can do the math. We played very well in the passing game. So I was disappointed how we tackled and managed that last play.
Hey, Coach.
The Chiefs' defense has given up more yards than any other team through the first two games. When you look at their defense, what do you see?
I see a lot of difference makers. I think that Chris Jones is one of the elite players in the league. I've got so much respect for his game. I think that he's fantastic. I think, Tyrann Mathieu is one of the elite players in the game. Those are two first-team All-Pro type players. I got guys that really, I think everybody in the NFL has a lot of respect for, and so much leadership and toughness with Tyrann. These guys are battle-tested. I think the one thing about their defense is they have to play a lot. They've had to play against a lot of really good people because they play deep into the playoffs every year. So they have a lot of experience. And then I think they've infused their team with some nice young talent too within the draft. I've been able to evaluate most of their young guys within the draft process, and I really like a lot of the young players that they've drafted. So I think Steve Spagnuolo does a really good job coaching. He's a quality coordinator. He's a Super Bowl champion, winning defensive coordinator at two different places. And so, I think so much of, coming off a Super Bowl, from what I understand, I haven't played in one yet, but it takes time. It takes time to get your guys exactly where you want them. And I think that they're going through that right now. But in terms of who they have and the respect that I have for their scheme and the way they're coached, couldn't be higher respect for their defense.
With Drew Tranquil, what can you do to get them to feel more often, or is that just kind of a Kylie Wright playing so well that it's kind of hard to get a bunch of guys out there?
Drew's playing well, and we're going to get him on the football field. That's for sure. He played well in the Dallas game. He's practicing great. It's one thing I said in the preseason. I do feel like he's a starter, and we're trying to unpack that rotation right now. And I think that so much about the beginning of the year is trying to get that right. But Drew, we're extremely pleased with his progress, and he's doing a tremendous job as a four-core special teams player, but he's a starting caliber linebacker in this league. I know we're really happy to have him, and I think you'll continue to see him play more and more.
How would you evaluate Kenneth Murray's play in the first two games?
I think up and down. I think there's been some really good moments, and then there have been some moments that we need to have him improve, and that's part about seeing the game, understanding his style of play versus what's on the other side of the football, understanding where he fits in within our defense. But I think he's communicating a lot better, which is something that we've worked really hard with him. Mike Wilhoit does an outstanding job with him. And I think that having that one-to-one relationship, linebacker to linebacker, has been a key relationship. But he needs to improve for us, just like a lot of guys. And I think that the exciting thing is that he's such a hard worker. He's a great person. He's a good competitor. So I think that you're going to see him continue to improve. And any mistakes that he makes, I think, will be less and less as he goes.
Hey, Coach, would you talk about Larry Roundtree, kind of what you've seen from him, and should we expect to see him carry the ball a little bit more?
Yeah, I think Larry's really proven himself in a short amount of time. I think that we're excited to have him in that running back rotation, and I think he's doing a really nice job in special teams. I think he made some really good decisions as our kickoff returner the other day. I think he's proven to be trustworthy. And I think from a physical standpoint, he gives you another dimension as a bigger back who packs a punch. And then he's done a nice job in the passing game too, both in pass protection and then hands out of the backfield. So he's been a pleasant surprise that way for us. And, I like coaching the guy. And I really feel like, the other night, all three of our running backs played a really good game. Austin really played like I think how you guys are all used to seeing him play as a feature player within our team. And then Justin Jackson, I thought, had a couple really, really good runs. And then the same with Larry. And you're just trying to find ways to keep those guys fresh. I really believe in that as much as we're asking these guys to do. And then I think all three of, Justin and Larry have played well in the kicking game for us. So I'm excited about where Larry can go with this game.
With your running back, as versatile as those guys are, is it the case that you go with the hot hand, or you just want to still keep them fresh by rotating the three of those guys or four of those guys in there?
Yeah, Cam, it's such an important point. When you have a lot of different running backs, I think it's a combination. If a guy's hot, he's feeling it. You want to make sure you feature that guy, but you also want to make sure that you keep him fresh because it's a fourth quarter game, and you want to be playing your best at the end. So I think it's a combination of rhythm and timing, who's hot and who's playing well, but at the same time having a really good substitution pattern where you can keep your guys fresh. And then you may have some designer plays where, hey, we really want this back doing this job for us. There's some stuff like that in the plan for us. But that's why I'm glad that we have three quality runners.
With Asante Samuel Jr., how impressive have you felt like he's been these first 2 weeks?
I'm really impressed with Asante Samuel. He looks like he belongs out there. You can really measure him when he's going nose to nose with somebody really good. That red area route on Amari Cooper, you can measure Asante less on the interception, which is fantastic, but more on a nose-to-nose play, right, where it's deny the ball down, right, on a third down or fourth down versus Amari Cooper, or the red area, right, in the middle part of the end zone. When you're nose-to-nose with a premium player, with a $100 million receiver, how are you playing? And so I feel like he's shown that he can go nose-to-nose. He gave up a pass to CeeDee Lamb on a really tough route. CeeDee Lamb's expressing himself as one of the elite players in the league, and it's a tough route. It's really a triple cut route, and he gave up a 14-yard pass, and so do a lot of corners, But what happened after that 14-yard play is he got right back in the huddle and kept playing. So, and that's what we need from him. And so we really like coaching the guy. He's got real toughness, real instincts, and we're going to continue to. He's going to have to continue to improve his game because the type of passing game that you have to see in the NFL is fierce, and the type of people that he's going to have to tackle is fierce. And so he's the type of competitor, though, that we really like coaching.
Andy Reid has a well-earned reputation as a great offensive mind, and with your defensive pedigree, what's that matchup like for you?
I have a lot of respect for Andy Reid. I think going back to when I was a young man, when he became the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, I think that a lot of people see, Andy as the accomplished, coach at two places and all that. But when he first got to Philly, that was a lot different, when he first got there. And then to establish that team as one of the premier teams in the NFC, a Super Bowl team, Donovan McNabb, all those great weapons that they had for so many years, guys that, people now know. But I just think that I go all the way back then to the coaching job that he did. And then people, I think, forget when he went to Kansas City, that team was in a much different place. And then since he's been there, we all know what's happened, and especially offensively, starting with Alex Smith and then working with Patrick here, and then a lot of other skill players too, as we know. But I also think that the thing about Andy that I really respect are the type of coaches that have come out of, his coaching staffs. And if you take a look around the NFL, you can see some of the elite coaches have learned from Andy Reid. And I think it just goes to show you the caliber leader that he is beyond just being an offensive coach. And I think the thing I respect about him offensively is much like I respect Vic Fangio, who I was with, is Andy Reid, the offensive coach in 1999, is a lot different than the offensive coach that he is in 2021. And he's shown the ability to adapt and stand the test of time. And I think that, all of us can learn from that and so much respect for him.
If Chris Harris Jr. can't go, is it more about putting Derwin again in that slot, or is it maybe moving him and having him shadow Travis, or maybe covering Tyreek? Like, have you guys thought kind of that far ahead about what would be the best for place to put him? Yeah,
Fernando, good questions, good observations, and we're working through it. There's a lot to work through with this team because they are so dynamic, and the positioning of your men really matters against a team like this. So we're unpacking it as we go, and you're going to need a lot of different people to be able to cover these guys. That's for sure.
Brandon, you have shown us that you're not afraid to go for two early. Some coaches won't do that. Just kind of your general philosophy on that in terms of, is that you'll do that at any point in the game? Does it matter? Are you just going on the chart, and if it says go for two, you're going to go for two, or how?
No, I think we're going to try and unpack each game as we go. Our models are going to be different based off who we play. But I felt like in that game, it was definitely the right situation to go for it, especially with the type of offense that team has. And then you also want to be able to apply pressure on the other side of things. If you make it, then it changes their model too early in the game. And I think that sometimes, by going for it in the first half in a situation like that, now you flip the script on what they have going on the other side too. And I have a lot of confidence in our operation. We're going to practice it a lot. Like, we knew that was going to happen. We got on the ball. There was no hesitation, and we ran a good football play, and Austin made a quality run. Our offensive line blocked a quality run. So I feel like more than anything, we're just going to trust our preparation week to week. And then in the moment, like I said, there's going to be, that was a decision that went well for us. And if it hadn't, then we would have kept it moving, and we would have been able to, assess how we needed to play moving forward, which it would have changed things had we not gotten it. But we felt like that risk reward was really good in that situation to go for it early.
Is it easier to go for two at home, maybe compared for the road, or does it depend on the team? Because, you're going into a tough venue this week at Arrowhead.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Joe. I think, to your point, I think what you can't do is be caught in between because of how loud it gets. What you can't be is caught in between, and then you send it out late, and then maybe you have to burn a timeout because it's not coming in quick enough, and Justin's having trouble hearing. So I felt like that's why, being decisive one way or the other is it's a good observation, because a lot of times when you see people caught in between, I think in that circumstance, then you see them have to bang a timeout because they weren't quite sure. Maybe you don't have the right grouping. Hey, we just scored a touchdown. Is someone tired? Hey, I wanted it to be this grouping, but now he's tired. Can I get it right? So, all those things I think factor into play, and I think good observation.
So, for example, on that play, you guys would decide a play or two in advance that you're
Yes.
going to go? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yep. And that.
Yards after catch been a big area of emphasis this week, especially for a guy like Travis?
Yes, Taylor. These guys are, and it's really all their skill players. It's Travis, Travis and Tyreek, for sure. Because everybody knows about them. And then Mecole Hardman is a handful. He's 4'3", awesome with the ball in his hands. You can't say enough about their runner. They've got Clyde, who's fantastic, but then they onboarded Jerick McKinnon, who have a lot of experience going against Minnesota, San Francisco. He's such a quality player. And then, the quarterback's a problem too. He's really hard to tackle. A lot of people don't realize how tough he is to tackle. He's a much stronger man, lower body, Patrick's really strong. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. He's really, really strong, physical for the position. And he's really tough to tackle too, because he's elusive and really strong. So definitely an important point. Certainly we didn't tackle well enough last week against a really quality team. So that's going to be a really big point of emphasis, is eliminate those yards after catch.
10 offensive penalties last week, 2 uncharacteristic on Corey. Just after unpacking the game, what did you see in the penalties and just point of emphasis this week?
Yeah, Joe, technique and putting the emphasis on the Chargers. I think, we could have avoided every single thing that happened in that game by playing either cleaner from a fundamental standpoint, and a lot of that is your physical fundamentals, and then understanding the actual technique of the play, like where's my help at? Hey, could that get me a better leverage so I don't hold? Hey, can I ID this run better so I don't get put in a disadvantaged position? And I think that's what we've tried to unpack this week. Is it's the little things that go into playing with clean execution, and that's where we've tried to put our focus. And it hasn't been clean enough the first 2 weeks for sure. And as you guys have seen, it's hurt us. Defensively, we've given up 20 points after penalties. And then offensively, we've, by our count, over 150 yards of offense and 2 touchdowns. So, that's certainly not where we want to be. And that's why we got to really have a good day of practice today and focusing on our execution.